If you have to take the stand in a trial for your car wreck case or your 18-wheeler case, do you know what cross-examination is? Are you prepared for it? Has your attorney prepared you for it? Watch this and we're going to get you ready for it. So first of all, I'm Kevin Runlett with Runlett Law Firm. We are continuing our series on 18-wheeler wrecks and things that you and your family need to know if you're ever in one of these situations. But today we're getting into the trial phase and what you need to know about cross-examination. First, what is cross-examination? Well, anytime a witness is put on the stand in a trial, they are put on the stand by their attorney to start with. There's always an opposing side. So, your attorney may put you on the stand, if you have a case, to tell your side of the story, to tell what you saw, what you smelled, what you tasted, what you experienced, because you're not considered an expert. You can testify to what you saw, heard, smelled, all of those type of sensory type testimonies, but you can't get into expert testimony about interpretation of a driver's log or the mechanics of the truck or things that require specialized knowledge. So you would be considered a lay witness, which is not a bad thing, but you would testify to what you observed, and your attorney will ask you direct questions, non-leading questions, the what, when, why, how questions that you can answer openly, such as, tell us about what happened that day. Well, on that day I was driving the speed limit on the road and it was clear and all of a sudden a truck came out of nowhere and smashed into me. That's a kind of an open-ended question. You can tell about what you observed. Now, after your attorney gets done asking you these questions that you've probably already been over, so you're familiar, you knew they were coming, it's time for cross-examination. Has your attorney prepared you for this? I hope so, because cross-examination can be very uncomfortable if you're not ready for it, if you don't know what's about to happen. So in cross-examination, after your attorney's asked you all of his questions, the attorney from the other side is going to stand up and ask you questions of their own. However, with cross-examination, because the purpose of this is to try to figure out whether you're telling the truth, poke holes in your story, make the jury look at things just a little bit differently, you're going to be asked questions that are non-open-ended. These questions are going to be leading questions. Leading questions are allowed on cross-examination, and they're only allowed in certain situations on direct examination. So what is an example of a leading question? You've all watched trial movies and TV shows, so you know what these are. Isn't it true that you were driving over the speed limit on this day? The only answer to that is yes or no. They're not asking for, well, yeah, I was for a minute, but then I slowed down. And it's not in your best interest to try to answer those questions in any way but yes or no in most instances. Your attorney should have discussed this with you, but you have to be ready for this and think through these questions. The way I advise most of my clients is on these type of cross-examination questions where they are trying to hurt you, there's 3 things you should do. First is listen to the question. Second, take a breath. And then you can answer. And you want your answer to directly answer their question, not to be a rambling answer, not to try to fill in the blanks. If you think that the question is hurting you, just be confident in your answer, think about what it is, and answer. An example of this is if you're asked, do you know what time it is? What's the proper answer? Well, if I've got a watch on or I can see a clock, then the answer is yes. I know what time it is, and that's it. So many people want to say, well, yes, it's about 10 o'clock in Central Time, Eastern, it's 11 o'clock, and looking at my watch here, it looks like, oh, it may be a little... That's a rambling answer to something that should have been answered very simply. So I hope this helps. Cross-examination can cause anxiety and stress. We understand that. Make sure you prepare for this so you've at least got an idea of what's going to happen. how it's going to go, and that should calm your anxieties and fears. It's not as bad as you think. Just prepare for it. If you like these videos, please give us a comment, like, subscribe. We'd love to have you seeing all of these if they're helpful. So how would you answer this question? I'm going to give you an example, and hopefully you'll leave me a response in the comments. You've all heard this. Were you lying then, or are you lying now? That's a famous cross-examination type question that you hear in the movies. How would you answer that?